Good morning. Great to be here again in such a plenary session with all of us together. The question that we now have coming out of the pandemic is, are we shaping our own future, or are we letting the future shape us and our companies? And we at KPMG, we believe that companies really have the opportunity to shape the future themselves if they are working on being a connected, empowered, trusted company. After we've come out of the pandemic, everyone saw that digitization was already accelerated, whether we as a company have done so or not. Which means that also all companies and all clients that we work with are trying to accelerate the digitization efforts that they have. But it's often get a bit difficult to see, okay, how do we start and where do we start first? Because there are so many aspects of the company, of our technology backbone, of the way we work, of our propositions that we want to address, and how are we making sure that we're making the right investments and starting in the right way. And what I want to share with you this morning is a bit on the way that we see what companies and successful companies that are trying to reason back from what they really want to achieve, what they are investing in, but also to share with you a story of actually also a local Phoenix company, as Peter would call it, that is really reinventing themselves using technology, and what are the lessons or takeaways and observations at least that I've personally taken away from being in that transformation with that company for almost 2 years. And what I think is interesting is that the framework of a connected and empowered and a trusted enterprise is not only a very useful guideline on what to invest in and what to build, but also how to realize it. Connected, powered, trusted, what is it really about? Connected is the philosophy that whatever you do in technology and digital transformation, it starts with putting the customer at the center of everything you do, and then making sure that everything in your company is connected to that. So from the front end, the mid office, the back end, and all the technology backbones with it. Powered means that you use solutions and intelligence already baked into those solutions to drive the best functions like sales, like marketing, finance, HR that you can have. And you can utilize and accelerate of all the knowledge that's already been accumulated in how to drive such a function and how to best leverage the models with it. Trusted becomes now more important than ever. Trusted used to be just about compliance. It's about making sure that you are compliant with all the rules and regulations. Now trusted goes much further, and especially with the rise of ESG, we see that trusted gives a real opportunity to differentiate yourself, but also means that by becoming a trusted company, not only from technology point of view, but from all your aspects of business, can really help you to drive forward. But that also means that being a trusted company cannot be something that you will become after you transform digitally. You have to bake it into the process. Now, what have we also seen from research is obviously it's really important to pick the right place where to start for maximizing impact. If we look at the survey that we've done together with Forrester, we've seen that 4 out of 5 companies are really focusing on putting a customer-centric strategy at the heart of what they do. And they would like to accelerate on that in the next 6 to 12 months. And I think for most of you that will sound like something that's really familiar. 3 in 5 are also really interested in making sure that they're building intelligent platforms using the AI, using all kinds of accelerators to make sure that they have a stable backbone on which to run their functions. And already 1 in 2 companies is thinking about how can we include ESG elements into the business cases of our digital transformation. How are we going to be more energy efficient by employing, for example, digital technology? Post-COVID, post-pandemic, we've also researched and asked leaders, okay, what are now the top issues that you are really investing in? And again, we see that this really comes down to the same connected, powered, and trusted themes as we would have thought from our research before. Meeting the customers, but also your employers where they are, be it calling on a Zoom or Teams call from the bedroom, or actually shopping online and wanting to return it in person, be sure you can meet your customers and employees and colleagues where they are and where they want to be. This can also mean that they are on digital channels that are not even your own channels anymore. That they are now much more shopping on channels that are owned by the unicorns or the big tech companies that we know, but they still want to do business with you there. How are you going to meet them? Secondly is to make sure you create the digital agility. That there's a lots of companies that have said, okay, we are moving towards more stable and standardized ways of how we operate our business functions. And through that, we are able to whatever the never normal or the new reality will throw at us. And you will see here a multiplication because each of these effects is compounding. So if you leave out one or the other, the effect will be a lot less. And it also means that in the third one, building a trusted enterprise becomes really, really important as a way to operate, but also as a way to be recognized and appreciated. And we also discussed that this goes much further now than just, for example, making sure that you have a CO2 impact analysis, but what are you doing to drive down, for example, your footprint? What are you doing to make sure that all the power that AI is putting in your hands is used in an ethically and responsible way? And how are you going about this? And how are you maybe thinking even further than what regulation and compliance is asking? So these are the elements that we see organizations invest in. If we then move to the next slide, yes, I want to share with you a couple of reflections on actually how to do this. And this is from a local Phoenix company. They are a service provider to mobility companies. And classically, they've mostly focused on financial services. They've done that very well, but they've done that in a very classical way. And they saw the chance that digitization brought an opportunity for them. The opportunity was that digitization is changing the whole dynamics of mobility and also the needs of their customers. And they thought, okay, we need to help them be ready into this new reality, and we can be much broader relevant to them than just with the financial services that we've been offering so far. So they set out to say, okay, we are hugely successful now, but to be hugely successful again or still in 10 years, we need to take action now. And the way actually that the transformation is running, you can see some elements that are going extremely well. You can see some elements that are working less. But I want to share with you some personal observations on, and also the link that I see with using Connected, Powered, Trusted, with thinking how you are running the transformations. The first off is a picture that came to my mind is these mangrove forests. They have a very big network of roots under the surface, and that allows them to optimally take advantage of all the streams of water in order to create great new value on above the surface, being the leaves. And what we've seen happening in digital transformations a lot is that you are asked to work on a new technology backbone. You are asked to maybe work on a new cloud backbone, on having more data platform ready. But these are all enabling layers. And ultimately, what it's about is how can you put these layers to work together with your functions to create new value for your customers. And this is really the trick also into running the transformation program that I've taken away. So long as you couple the development and the expansion of your new foundational layers on the, for example, the technology and data side, together with making successes in creating new value, new propositions to your customers, or serving them in the right way, then you can sustain the change effort for a longer time, but you also keep up the energy, because working on the foundations is sometimes not as interesting as getting the client feedback, who is absolutely thrilled with what you've now brought. And by coupling that together, you can make sure that the effort will sustain, but that it also will scale to more than an individual innovation pilot. And really there, the magic seems to be the connection between talents that are working in the tech and the talents that are working in the functions, say marketing, sales, innovation, but also your operations supply chain. Getting them connected, getting them to understand each other's worlds, that IT cannot always deliver in one day, but what amazing ways they can help their customers if they employ this is really important. And at the same time, this also is a huge change effort, which also requires a lot of energy from everyone involved, while operating, of course, the running business. And we always try to make as much speed as we can with the digital transformation. But I think the image of putting a Ferrari in front of a caravan, a mobile home, through an elastic and then go full throttle, is I think a good relation to how digital transformation programs can feel for the rest of the organization who are still in the mobile home, while the tech department, CDOs, CIOs may be already far in the Ferrari and trying to go faster. So make sure you have an eye for that elastic. The second one is that it's really empowered people that drive the change. And if you look at this great picture of mountaineers who are working together, I'd like you to focus on the middle one, because they are bridging between the ones who are really up front, but also making sure everyone else is coming along. And the people in the organization that are really willing to take up the new possibilities that technology that you can provide is giving them are also the ones that are driving the digital transformation programs. And especially if these are people who are talented, who are still wanting to grow, to learn, but also know the company well, then they are really well positioned to help drive the change, sometimes much more than the very seasoned ones, or maybe the ones that are coming from outside. However, if you want to empower them, be conscious of the fact that there might be really differences in maturity levels of, for example, functions. And if you have some functions that are really or relatively low on maturity, make sure that you put them on par as soon as possible, because otherwise the weakest link in the chain will slow down the transformation effort. And you will encounter these lower maturities even if you haven't seen them before, but they are now the time to take into the hands and to fix them. And the other one is external power and partner power can be really effective to help drive a transformation, but make sure you know how to handle it. Make sure you have a good vendor sourcing management. Make sure you know how to integrate external help into your teams to infuse them and to also make sure you upskill yourself. And that is really, I think, important. And the last one is about the trusted leadership. Imagine that for a lot of people in your company, they probably feel like the driver here on the right side. They're asked to put the foot on the metal. They actually don't know where they're going, but they need to go faster. And you, as a technology leader, you have a much clearer picture, normally, of where technology can go, where it can take the organization. But what we've seen, what helps is to spend an extraordinary amount on communicating the vision, taking people with you. And this is also, of course, what rally drivers do, but especially in this particular case. There's a non-stop communication stream going on of, okay, what do I see? Where do we go? How can you adjust? Okay, you made an error. It's not a problem. I got your back. And in this way, there really is also a trust from the leadership. And this is not only important for internal stakeholders, but especially to external stakeholders if you're going about reinventing yourself. Because external stakeholders, this is what we've seen, they have a really clear image of what kind of company you are, what is your role, what is your purpose. And if you try to reinvent yourself and you will, for example, broaden the way how you fulfill your purpose, it's really important to make sure you take your external stakeholders with you and to explain what you are doing and how you can do it. And the last one I think is really important when it comes to these new initiatives. Communicate a lot, but while you're doing, under-promise and at the same time over-deliver. Nothing puts more strain on also a technology team if the promises made to clients about new propositions are far from reality and all kinds of shortcuts have to be made in order to actually get something by the deadline. So communicate a lot, but under-promise and over-deliver. In that way, you can shape your own future instead of the future shaping you. Thank you very much.